Hi, Gary Stearman. Welcome to another update from Prophecy Watchers. And I'm very pleased to have in studio with me today Brent Miller. Brent, good to see you again.
It's a pleasure to be back.
We've worked together in the past. In fact, I've got a couple of DVDs here, and we have spoken of these in the past. And here at Prophecy Watchers, we have sent out many of these, The Coming Pole Shift and Fire from Heaven, both having to do with the calamities that are ahead for us, according to Bible prophecy. And before we talk about your latest production, which is called The Coming Convergence, let's talk about the times that we made these previous DVDs, Fire from Heaven and The Coming Pole Shift. Basically, you're talking about the Bible's view of the future, perhaps the near future, when things are really going to come apart in a hurry.
Right. These two events, the fires from heaven and the coming pole shift. The coming pole shift refers to Revelation 6. It is the opening of the sixth seal, where every island and every mountain is moved off its foundation, telling us the type of pole shift, a crustal pole shift, the worst possible worldwide disaster imaginable, even worse than the days of Noah. We give plenty of detail about it. The Bible talks about that extensively in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Isaiah has probably 50 different verses on that and tells us the events that will transpire in terms of world calamity. Fires from heaven is when it's part of the wrath of God. One of the main first initial blasts of God's wrath on the earth. It's the first trumpet of the seventh seal, where 1/3 of the entire earth is scorched. And based on the wording itself, we go into detail as to how that event happens and how we can see that event happening today.
And the whole motivation behind what you're doing is to alert people to the fact that there's maybe very little time to get the message of prophecy out to the populace at large. People need to hear that they need to come to Christ. And of course, we've said this for years. We've had evangelism on the basis of a number of large-scale social events. We had World War I, World War II, and the panic that those wars brought saw large-scale evangelism. Post-World War II, there was a period of large-scale evangelism. But everything has died down now, and people have gone back to ho-hum, everything's all right, and it's going to keep on being all right. But that's not your opinion.
It's not going to be that way. We are actually in the last generation. The last generation started with the formation of Israel in 1948. Since that last generation, since we are in the last generation, in our lifetime, we will see the fulfillment or the convergence of all the final 500 prophecies that have yet not been fulfilled. And these prophecies are among the absolute most scary prophecies in the world. I mean, since the history of the world, 2,500 prophecies total, these last 500, as they're going to come upon us, will be devastating. We don't want people to go through the wrath of God. You have a chance. God gave everybody a chance in every generation by telling you what was coming up, and then seeing that happen, and that being part of your history. So you can research the history of the last 2,000 prophecies being fulfilled in exact detail, so that you know this remaining 500 prophecies will be fulfilled. But if that isn't good enough, the coming convergence, these prophecies refer to a framework of the earth, of how it will come together in forming a global cooperative religious state, global cooperative economic state, and global cooperative political state. And we can see these frameworks happening. They have been in the works, and they're happening right underneath our very eyes. So you take this concept that conspiracy theorists say, New World Order, as if there's going to be suddenly one day we wake up and everything's changed. It's happening right now in front of us. It's been happening for the last couple decades. The world is restructuring itself so that there will be a single political faction, which will be eventually controlled by what the Bible refers to as the Assyrian or the Antichrist, as most people know him. And all of these, by the way, all of these things that the world is merging and moving toward make logical sense. They make sense for everybody on the street. If we got rid of currency, then we would have no break-in and entries. We'd have no financial crimes. If we had a single political faction on earth where all the governments are under a universal law of peace on the planet, then we could cooperate better because we all know where he stands. But as the scriptures tell us, when the world starts saying peace and safety, sudden destruction will come. And these last 500, I implore everybody to know what these scriptures are saying, know what these prophecies are.
Now, you produced The Coming Convergence. That title, Convergence coming together, and what you're talking here about the convergence of a number of data points in Bible prophecy that suggest that things are going to begin to happen very quickly. And that's the thesis, the theme behind The Coming Convergence. Brent Miller Sr. has produced this. Brent Miller Jr., your son, has overseen the production and I guess the casting, every part of putting this thing together. And I got to tell you, it's one of the most touching movies. I mean, it really hits your heart. You feel what it might feel like to discover you were in the tribulation. And I think that message needs to be conveyed to people.
People need to open their eyes because these things are happening. All these events are happening before them right now. Let's take the internet. Just one little minor point that's happening right in front of our eyes. The whole world.
A minor point, which just happens to be global in scope.
It is global in scope. In fact, I can't live without my cell phone, iPad, and all these devices.
That's the whole world. You've got to have the iPad, iPhone. You've got to have the computer. You've got to be online, and particularly if you're a teenager.
Right. So
everybody's got the little thing they're holding out in front of them, and they can be tracked 24/7.
Yep. If you're going to have a single global authority, that global authority will eventually have to have global control over the internet, regardless of the country. So what you expect to see is that somehow all the countries give up control of their authority over the internet and give it to a single entity, which then later can be controlled by this one world cooperative political structure. That, by the way, has already happened. What happened was in 1998, the United States, along with the rest of the world, passing various laws in order to cooperate with other countries.
That's a good word, cooperate.
Cooperate. The Department of... They created a time frame by which ICANN would take control over all the DNS, literally hand over the control from the United States to ICANN, a privatized company. And ICANN, I-C-A-N-N, now controls all the DNS, which is the unique number naming system for all the internet servers on the planet. So
if you control the internet, you control the world.
You could. And see, that's just one step that people don't understand that is such a vital step. For instance, censorship makes it that much easier. Legally, all you have to do now is tell this one company, for the purpose of tolerance and safety, a key word here, safety, you shouldn't be saying that in your blog, so I'm going to censor that. The United States government can no longer now say, oh, you have the right of free speech because our Constitution says that. No, because we're doing that blog on the internet, which is no longer under the control of the United States, nor its Constitution. So in essence, we're already merging into this one world cooperative.
And when that
government
happened, this is the thing that I'm listening to you, when that thing happened, there was no great fanfare.
No, not at all.
No news release. If you weren't reading the back pages of a newspaper or the fine print on the internet, you'd never even know it happened.
But then you'd also have to understand, even if you read it, what it meant.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, right. And so now we're already seeing, after this event happened, we're now seeing rumblings of various statements happening around the world. Facebook is shutting down sites, YouTube is shutting down sites, because you're saying things that they don't want you to say. A new buzzword is fake news. Well, who's to define what is news is real and what is fake? Well, Google and Yahoo have already cooperatively said that they will remove fake news. In the future, I see that this type of control would be used very, very readily and quickly to eliminate what governments would define as hate speech. Well, what defines hate speech? Remember, it's a worldwide system, all religions. So unless you're tolerating and cooperating with everybody, it would be hate speech. You can't talk against any faction on earth without becoming controversial or having a different opinion.
Your point is that we're moving a lot faster than people realize.
Far faster than people even believe is happening, because by the time the foundations are all laid out and the events start happening in sequence, they're going to happen so fast in order to complete before the end of this generation that you need to know what's happening and see it happening before you don't have the option of taking action.
And you can see what happens in the coming convergence. And by the way, this very stark production, very emotional. It's based upon biblical fact, the facts of Bible prophecy. From a certain perspective, I think it might be well to say that you're introducing Bible prophecy to someone who's never studied it and who doesn't understand the need to understand times and seasons and the work of the Lord and so forth. And I think it's a great production. I think a lot of people will have that second thought about, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to seek out someone who's a believer and so that I can achieve salvation, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the coming convergence is a great evangelical tool to introduce the secular world to prophecy. And once you've introduced them to prophecy, then you've introduced them to Scripture. And they then can open their eyes and just look around the world with new glasses on, for example, and see these events unfolding and know that the Bible and the Scriptures are accurate.
Brent Miller, Sr., thanks for dropping by, Prophecy Watchers. And by the way, you can check our online bookstore for these great productions. Ingenuity Films puts out the best, what can I say? They're really wonderful production values. You know, you'll be moved, and that's the best thing I can say by this film. It's emotionally moving, and that's where we operate. We human beings basically are emotional creatures, and we need to be moved. So thanks for coming by. Appreciate it, Brent.
Thank you again, Gary. Thanks.
I'm Gary Stearman. You keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.